Welcome, everybody, to a special preview edition of All In with Art Stapleton, a New York Giants podcast brought to you by NorthJersey.com and The Record. I'm your host, Art Stapleton. We are here in East Rutherford, shadow of MetLife Stadium, getting ready for the Giants and the unbeaten Los Angeles Chargers, Justin Herbert, Jim Harbaugh, and it is the debut of Jaxson Dart as QB1 for the New York Giants on Sunday. It's been a busy week here, a lot to get to for the Giants getting ready. Appreciate all of those of you who watched and listened to the emergency podcast the other day when Jaxson Dart was named the starter. Myself and producer Paul Wood very much appreciate it. Let's keep All In rolling into week 4 for the New York Giants. And it's a new era. And it is, as I mentioned back in the spring, when Jaxson Dart ended up with number 6 and Abdul Carter ended up with 51, you got 6. 5 plus 1 is 6. For Star Wars fans, let's keep the theme rolling. It's Execute Order 66. And in the way right now is a very, very, very good team, a good coaching staff, and Jim Harbaugh, Greg Roman on the offense, and Jesse Minter with the defense. Very good quarterback in Justin Herbert. Defensive playmakers like Derwin James. So if Jaxson Dart and, to an extent, Abdul Carter are going to bring the lightsabers to Sunday's game, they better be in for an all-out war. Because ultimately, this is not an easy game for the New York Giants. 0-3. That's why it's made, or at least added to, an even more interesting and entertaining week for the Giants to start the Dart era. So we're here Friday. In terms of the injury report, I wouldn't expect any significant injuries to any players that you would consider core players for this team. Malik Neighbors is going to play. Theo Johnson's going to play. Andrew Thomas having a full week of practice. Even though he's a limited participant, that just means that Marcus Bowe is getting some snaps at left tackle. So I would expect more than the 28 snaps that Andrew Thomas had last week against Kansas City. We'll see how that plays out on Sunday at MetLife Stadium. So let's get a little into more of Jaxson Dart. And I think, a lot of people want to know what this offense is going to look like. I talked a little bit about it the other day. You saw the Jaxson Dart offense in the summer, in preseason. You just didn't see it with the first team personnel. Now you're going to see it with the first team personnel. I think there's going to be a lot of zone read. I think they're going to try to spread the field out against a team like the Chargers and a defense like this defensive tackle group for the Chargers, especially on the interior. You are not going to want to see that pull the personnel in, 3 tight ends, keep it tight, and pound the football. This isn't the team you do that against. So I think that also fits to what Jaxson Dart does best. You want to spread the field out, give him an opportunity to oversee the field, get to the line of scrimmage, see what's there, see what's out there, make the calls, make the right checks, and then go and see if he can get the matchups that you want. I think tempo is going to be a big thing. We haven't seen that from the Giants in 3 weeks. I know everybody calls it the no huddle, but nowadays in the NFL, they call it tempo, up tempo. Because most of the time, even if they're going slow, teams don't huddle up. So I would expect to see no huddle once the game goes. I think tempo, I think you'll get to a situation where the Giants will have a bunch of plays. They'll have things scripted, but they also know what Jaxson Dart wants, what Jaxson Dart likes. And I think they'll adjust to that. There's a level of excitement from Mike Kafka, the offensive coordinator, still the play caller, from Shea Tierney, who talked this morning. I'll get to him in a little bit as far as the quarterbacks coach goes, passing game coordinator. This offense hasn't produced in 2 of 3 games, especially not in the red zone. So where you're looking at it is how can you affect defenses with what Jaxson Dart wants to do. And now, by making the decision on Tuesday, you've given the Chargers at least a heads up, something to think about. Jesse Minter is going to build his schematic plan off of what he thinks the Giants are going to do with Jaxson Dart. That doesn't always work out that way. But again, I've said this for 2 weeks now, said it in the post-game podcast Sunday night. Said it again on Wednesday. There was no soft landing for Jaxson Dart here, and you wanted to give him the longest runway possible to be able to withstand this row of games that the Giants are going to have to face. You have the Chargers, undefeated Chargers on Sunday. Then you go down to New Orleans, which the Saints are winless. But as I said the other day, the winless Saints are looking at the Giants going, you know what, that's our get-right game. So that's not going to be an easy game. Then you have a short week for Philly here. Then you go to Denver for that defense. And then you come back at Philly where you have not won since 2013 when Tom Coughlin was the coach. And Peyton Hillis was your running back, leading rusher that day. So this is not a great stretch where all of a sudden you feel like, all right, you're Alabama and you just scheduled Sam Houston State and you're just going to roll it out there and Jackson is going to do what he's got to do and then you can gear up. Part of that, and as I mentioned the other day, I'll mention it here, is the way the weeks are constructed practice-wise. Jaxson Dart's first full practice with the first team offense was Wednesday. If they waited and gave Russell Wilson another week and had Wilson start against the Chargers and then brought Jackson in and said his first start is going to be week 5 in New Orleans, which is what I thought originally. But the more I thought about it, had you done that, you would have given Jaxson Dart 3 practices. Friday is essentially a glorified walkthrough. So 2 practices with the first team offense. Then he would have had to play at New Orleans and then come back on a short week where the Giants essentially will be only on the field for walkthroughs and then would have to play the Philadelphia Eagles at MetLife Stadium in prime time on Thursday night. So, there are reasons for and against, and we wrote about that even before Brian Dable made the decision and made the call to go to Jaxson Dart. And I think that's kind of how it played out. So that's what you're going to see in the offense. I do think there's a little bit of a mystery. How are they going to have the run game? Now it's Cam Scadaboo's show. It's Scadaboo Singletary. I would imagine Turbo Miller gets the call up, talk to Tyrone Tracy in the locker room. Sense I get, he clearly is not ready. I don't know if IR is going to be an option for Tracy because he's right in that 2 to 4 week window where you think maybe if he could be ready in 3 weeks, maybe you ride with him, keep him on the active roster. So we'll see where that is. But I do know just by talking to him yesterday and watching him, he's better than what he was the other night when he dislocated the shoulder. But he's still in some pain. There's still discomfort there. So if he ends up on the IR, I would not be surprised. Then you designate him after 4 weeks if he's ready to go. But it's the Scadaboo show. And let's just talk about Cam real quick. The idea that, I talked to him yesterday in the locker room, and we talked about his biggest weakness. Back in draft time, scouts everywhere talked about how Cam Scadaboo is a liability in pass protection. Now, you expect that from rookie running backs, but that Scadaboo just showed no interest or little interest. You would see a good play followed by a couple really bad plays in pass protection. So I actually went to Cam and I talked to him about it. And that's the story that posted on NorthJersey.com. It's there if you haven't read it. Please go and read it. I was really enjoyed writing it because I think Cam was pretty honest, was candid. Talked about how his coach at Arizona State told him flat out when he got ready for the pre-draft evaluation process that people coming into Arizona State talked about his pass protection and that it had to improve if he was going to have a chance to stick at the next level. So Cam said, part of the reason, he said, look, I would have drives where I touch the ball 3 and 4 times, then I'd get into pass protection. And he said, no excuses, but I'd either be tired or, waiting for the next play. I'd mess up my technique. I wasn't aware enough as to what was going on, what my assignment was. And now there's more of an emphasis, knowing his assignment. He pointed out, and so did Marcus Bowe, the chip block that he had on Charles, I guess it's on menu, right, from Kansas City the other night. He had a chip block. He actually beat Bowe to the block and sent the Kansas City defender flying a little bit. There were jokes on social media that he may have broken a couple of his ribs the way Scadaboo hit him. So just an interesting read, I thought. It was an interesting write. And Scadaboo is a big personality, but he's also a big part of this team right now. He and Jaxson Dart are very close. Saw that video yesterday with Brian Dable talking with Jaxson Dart and Cam Scadaboo. I mean, this offense is built around those two guys and Malik Neighbors. Yes, Wan'Dale Robinson. Yes, Darius Slayton. Yes, Theo Johnson. At least they hope he gets going. And what happens at the offensive line. But Scadaboo and Dart are big personalities. And I think as rookies, it's time to step up for them. Maybe a little earlier than people would have hoped, at least from a Giants perspective. But it's go time for them. Let's get to Brian Dable a little bit. I know this went out there yesterday. Let me set the scene for you. On Thursdays, when we get the coordinators who are at the podium, we get Michael Gabriel, Shane Bowen, and Mike Kafka. After that, there are no cameras present, but we call it the walk-by. It's a little bit of a scrum for about 2-3 minutes with Brian Dable to discuss injuries from the day before, anything that maybe popped up. But it's really a restricted time before he heads out to the practice field. So when Dable talks 4 times a week, that's that 5th day, because the 4 times a week are the game and after the game on Monday. And then you have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So that's 5 days. He's only obligated to talk 4 days. So when he talks to us on the 5th day, which is Thursday, there's no cameras. It's not a press conference setting. So the reaction yesterday, I was getting a lot of questions privately. What happened with Dable taking his shot at the medical people? And when Dable was talking about why was he practicing outdoors on the grass fields in the rain, which is rare. The Giants don't normally do that under Dable. They've gone into the field house. Why was he doing that? And what was the rationale? And Dable's answer was, players prefer, because of their legs, to be on grass. The idea you'll deal with the slippery field, but his medical people, and he used air quotes, and that's rare for Dable. He doesn't do that. Normally you don't see that mannerism from him at a podium, especially. And when he said medical people, and then talked about how the medical people suggested that they stay on the grass as well, there was a lot of ambiguity to that, and we weren't afforded the opportunity to ask Dable a follow-up off of that. Like I said, it was restricted 2 to 3 minutes, so it was open to interpretation. And I know some of my colleagues who also cover the team felt one way and looked at it as Dable taking a shot at the medical people. And I didn't hear it like that. I actually just saw Dable basically saying what the NFLPA has been saying for years, is that if they have the choice between practicing on grass and practicing on turf, they would much rather practice on grass. So when he said medical people, I assumed that it was just the group that meets in their medical meetings. It wasn't just Ronnie Barnes or Aaron Wellman, or Lee Weiss, who's involved with the rehab, or Laura Young, who's involved with their practice plan and their planning. He's obviously she's Dable's assistant, almost like a chief of staff, LY is. So we got to today, and like I said, there was a lot of speculation. A lot of fans wanted to know, what did Dable mean? Was that a shot at the medical people? So we got to today's press conference. We were near the end. No one asked anything about it. So I took the opportunity to ask Dable, told him, this happened. I put the video up on Twitter, so you can go look at that with the video, the exchange of asking him, because I wanted to know. I wanted to give him the opportunity. Was he taking a shot at the medical people? What was his rationale, the way he was described it, and did he mean the way some perceived it? His answer said no. Looks like I was on the same page as he was. The idea of when he used medical people, he meant the entire group that they meet with to develop the practice plan every day. It includes medical, but it also includes people on his staff, people on Ronnie Barnes' staff, people on Aaron Wellman's staff, the grounds crew, which talks about the conditions outside on the field. So again, if Dable had talked about that and elaborated more on Thursday, the whole air quotes gate would not have happened. So I gave him the opportunity to address it. I also followed up with, is he displeased with anything with the medical people, any advice that he's gotten? He says no. So take it for what it's worth. I asked the questions, he gave the answers, and now you can appreciate whatever perspective you may appreciate and may agree with, disagree with, but at least I was always told, if there's ambiguity, you question it. So there was ambiguity on Wednesday after we met with the players about the players finding out on social media. That's why I asked Dable yesterday about finding it out, and he said that's just the world we live in. And then today there was ambiguity about what he told us with no cameras present about the decision to practice in the rain outside. And let's be honest, it was a little bit of a drizzle. The only reason it was rare is it is uncommon for Dable to be outside when it rains, but they decided they wanted to stay on the grass fields yesterday. So that's the end of the air quotes fiasco, interpretation, whatever it is on my end. But hopefully you guys appreciate the fact that the question was answered. At least it was asked, it was answered, and now we can move on. Dable on Dart said last night, was late, got a call from Dart at home. Dart wanting to talk red zone. Dable said his reaction to him was, "What are you doing? Get some sleep. We'll get after it tomorrow morning. We'll talk about it." Obviously, the red zone is something that the Giants need to attack and need to figure out answers. And I think ultimately that's where the game will be won and lost on Sunday. It's the red zone. And look, there is some irony for those of us who've covered this team for a while. Go back to the Dave Gettleman era and the Jerry Reese era. We know the Giants had their eyes on Justin Herbert in 2019. And when they ended up with Daniel Jones, that college season, the Giants loved Justin Herbert of Oregon. He's their guy. Now, it had not progressed to the point where the coaching staff was involved or anything like that, but Justin Herbert was the guy. And just like the year before, Josh Allen was the guy for Pat Shurmur and for John Mara. Now, there were others like myself who liked Sam Darnold more than Josh Allen, but that was 18. So then in 19, Justin Herbert decides to go back to Oregon to be with his brother, to play with his brother, to get another college year in, and the Giants miss out on Justin Herbert. Now Justin Herbert is doing what he's doing, has never played better. He's with the Chargers now. And I thought of this story yesterday, and I told Tyler Newman and Javon Holland this story yesterday, and I figured I would relay it here before we go into and close this show out, is that if you guys recall, back in 2021, it was Joe Judge's last year. The Giants played the Chargers in LA, but the week before they played the Dolphins in Miami. And Joe Judge decided, and this was before the season, that they were going to stay at the University of Arizona in Tucson and practice in Tucson the week between Miami and the Chargers. Sorry, I had a little bit of a meltdown there, brain-wise. But so we flew. The team did, but also the beat writers covering the team flew to Arizona. I remember going from Miami to Atlanta to Arizona because Atlanta flew to Tucson, but Miami did not, or at least the flights were not cheap at all. So we were in Arizona for a week with the Giants, and then they went to LA, and so did we. That week, Joe Judge decided that he was going to allow the beat writers to stay at practice beyond the actual media viewing period there. It was like, you know what? There were 6, 7 of us that had made the trip. And in his mind, it was, we're going to show you a little bit more. So there was one drill that the Giants and the safeties at the time were Logan Ryan and Xavier McKinney. And the Giants were drilling this deep pass. They said whenever Herbert gets on the run, he likes to go deep. And they were drilling a play where they had whoever was running the scout team at the time. I can't remember which quarterback it was. At the time, that was when Daniel Jones was hurt. So Jake Fromm had just come on, Mike Glennon. I know, bad memories, Giants fans. But they threw a ball about 60 yards, whoever it was, across midfield. And the two safeties kind of let the ball. The drilling point was, do not let anyone get behind you because Herbert will beat you. You know, Herbert, the story from his pro day was when he stood on the goal line and threw it to the opposite 30. I mean, he's got a rifle, probably the biggest arm in the league. Yes, Josh Allen probably throws the hardest passes, but Herbert's right there with him as far as distance goes. So in the game, unfortunately, Giants fans, you probably remember this. The end of the first half, sure enough, the exact play that the Giants drilled in practice told their safeties, Ryan and McKinney, do not let a receiver get by you. Guyton, the receiver for the Chargers, got behind him, and 59 yards later, touchdown. Ball, I think, went about 60 yards in the air from Justin Herbert, maybe even longer because he was behind the line of scrimmage, obviously. So it was probably a good 65, 70 yards in the air. And it was a touchdown right before the half. That was the dagger. I mean, that was the knockout punch, whatever you wanted to say. But that was the last time we've seen Justin Herbert take on the Giants. So, Javon Holland, Tyler Nubin, everyone was complaining in Dallas about how you were playing too far back. You can't play enough against Justin Herbert. And we saw it for real in LA at SoFi Stadium back in 2021. So that's where we're at. I think, it's going to be fun on Sunday. It's going to be fun. I don't know if the result will be fun. I don't know if the product during the game will look or be enjoyable for Giants fans. But these are moments when you have Jaxson Dart's first start of his career. You hope that 16 years down the line, you're looking back and talking about, remember all that stuff that happened, and remember the stuff with Dable and his air quotes and all this stuff. If 16 years I'm lucky enough to be healthy and be still covering this team in some way, shape, or form, we'll look back to this week and say, remember when everyone decided that Brian Dable was done and Joe Shane was terrible and all this team was done. They're 0-3. It's not my job to argue that they need to keep these guys or they need to have these guys stay in their job. But I have promised you, and I will continue to do that, that I will be fair and I will be as honest as I can with you guys, the audience, both in my coverage on NorthJersey.com and in the record, and obviously on this podcast at all in. So, all right, last thing. I'm looking up here and we got planes flying overhead all the time. I know you feel the need to express your frustration and drop $2-3 on a plane that carries a banner. Personally, I'm not one to tell fans how to fan. I've learned that long ago. The reality is, come up with different ways to express your frustration. I can guarantee you John Mara gets more expletive-filled emails and letters to him here at his office than what those planes say. And if you think it's really embarrassing the Giants by having a banner that you have to, please, Mr. Mara, clean house. Clean house now. You've got to watch your words. I get tweets every day that are more vulgar and more impactful about the Giants and John Mara and Brian Dable and Joe Shane and me that are on that banner that's hanging over the plane, over the stadium. But everybody wants their 15 minutes of fame. Everybody wants their opportunity to say they told them so. Well, if that's what you prefer, I'm not going to tell you how to fan, but I don't know if it's necessarily having the impact that you think it is. And that's where we're at. So if it's a plane you want to see, there'll be planes around here all the time. But there'll be planes Sunday, I'm sure, with the, please, Mr. Mara, fire everyone, clean house. Because, he doesn't hear anything worse when he walks onto the field or walks around the stadium, or probably hears it in the building from some of his own employees. So that's where I'm at. I haven't talked to John Mara. I don't know what John Mara thinks about it, but I can promise you, people are not here worried about the planes on Sunday. That is a fact. So for Paul Wood, I'm Art Stapleton. Thanks for watching. We are all in on the weekend. We'll be there early. All across social media, everything we've got from Twitter to X, Twitter and X, Instagram, TikTok. It's Art_Stapleton on Twitter and Instagram. Art Stapleton across the board at TikTok. Also, all our North Jersey news channels on social media. Josh and Paul have done a great job putting that stuff together. It's going to be a big day on Sunday. You'll remember where you are when Jaxson Dart gets his first start. Just the 6th rookie quarterback, to get a start for the Giants since Phil Simms. And a Giants rookie quarterback has not won his debut since, against a winning team, that might add, since Phil Simms. So you'll see a lot of stats floating around, everything else. All you got to do is win one game. So, as we said at the top, execute Order 66. Jaxson Dart, Abdul Carter, 6'6". They both love Star Wars and Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader. That's what this era is all about. If it's a new era, ride these guys. Go play big on Sunday. Shock the world. Finally make some of these plays that you're not making in the red zone. And it's okay to surprise some people and play well. Maybe get a takeaway or two on defense, not give up chances, and maybe just maybe leave those of you who are going to the game on Sunday and just want to boo the crap out of the Giants. Maybe they can make you leave upset and make everyone who wants to come and cheer on this team and cheer on this rookie quarterback. Maybe they'll make that segment happy afterwards. So, all right, that's it. We're done with All In. We're getting ready to go into the locker room. So for Paul Wood, I'm Art Stapleton. Watching, we appreciate it. And we'll catch you Sunday night with our post-game pod from MetLife Stadium so we can break down everything you need to know about Jaxson Dart's debut as the starting quarterback of the New York Giants. Have a good weekend. We'll see you Sunday night.